All right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever, wherever you might be. Um, on stream right now with Mr. Jake Sharpe. How you doing, man? Welcome to Freedom of Speech Month at the Cabana.
It's a perfect time for freedom of speech month, especially after elections.
You know what? Exactly. And that's kind of why I planned it this way. I planned it for the week of the election, and it just turned into you had a lot of positive feedback from it. And just I was talking to Big K last show, and I was like, you know what? Let's just make a whole month of it. So, yeah, happy to welcome you in. Jake's the founder of TitanX. I'm looking on my one stream. Looks like my camera is a little wonky. So I'm going to duck back out and come back in. But Jake, if you got like 15 seconds to introduce yourself, I'll duck out, come back in, and that should fix my camera issue.
Sweet. Yeah, so my name is Jake Sharpe, NK knows on Twitter. I'm the founder of TitanX. I don't like using the word founder, but creator. I birthed the code on the blockchain. We are a fair launch ecosystem on Ethereum. We're actually one of the biggest ecosystems. We're almost at around 100 million market cap, or 1% of the total volume on Ethereum. We have more builders than $500 million L1s. Actual dev numbers. Like all the statistics are looking beautiful on TitanX. I think the biggest thing with TitanX was it really was the time for fair launch and bringing everything back to the community and making it being built by the community, which is very hard to do. But so far, it's been definitely worthwhile. So yeah, I took the show there for a second.
There you go. Yeah, show takeover, instant. First time on, and you just take it right over. So yeah, man, cool to have you. I mean, I got like we're talking in the green room, tons of stuff to ask you. A lot of my audience is used to Hex, Pulse Chain content. Freedom of Speech Month is kind of turned into, we're going to talk everything, including, majors like Bitcoin and Ethereum and other stuff. So we had Dave Levine on last night. We had OX Steph talking his Alti project. I really wanted to get TitanX in here to talk about that. And, what's cool about TitanX, in my opinion, some people might not share this view, but the communities are somewhat intertwined. There's a lot of OG Hexkins involved, where they talk about it or not. And there are also kind of, I guess, perhaps good actors and bad actors, sloshing liquidity and funds back and forth between chains, so we can get into that. But yeah, I thought this would be a really cool kind of like a crossover thing. And if y'all like it, let me know, and we can do more of this stuff. So please leave your feedback on Twitter, on the socials, or at my channel. I know Jake's got his channel streaming as well, so good stuff, man. You want to, I guess, while the room fills up, because it's slowly filling up here, couple just getting to know you kind of questions, since you've never been on this channel before, and maybe some fun stuff too before we really get into what everybody wants is the TitanX, and then we'll do some X28 farms, Shogun, all of it. But I know you've done so many streams, because I see you everywhere, and I've probably watched I guess maybe 90% of them this year, if I had to guess, maybe closer to 100%. But you've answered a lot of questions, and you is there something that you could tell me and the audience that they don't know about you? I mean, it could be like you won a baking competition when you were 10. You like to ride ponies, like just something random that nobody knows that you haven't said on stream.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of interesting. So I'm a unique combination between engineer, hardcore nerd, but also I used to train MMA for 5 years. So nice. One thing that people don't know is, so I used to train primarily grappling and BJJ, and did some boxing and MMA, but primarily grappling, nogi. And I was second national in my country. So the way these competitions work, because it sounds way more impressive than it actually is. So you have these local competitions, right, and they mark themselves as the country's championship. So I ended up second, and I was pissed off because I wasn't first, because I lost on 1 point. to get number one national. So I could be number one in the country in that specific tournament because you have like 10, 20, everybody has their own title. So I think that's something people don't know. I used to be very hardcore, like extremely obsessive mind. I used to train 7 days a week.
Nice.
And then I would sometimes take 2 days off, but like 2 hours a day, 7 days a week. First, I wanted to become a sponsored athlete. But then after watching a lot of interviews from fighters and stuff, I was like, this is the worst career path you could possibly choose.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I need to change my trajectory. And that's when I not really got into software engineering, but went heavy into software engineering. So I was a developer first. Also did some door-to-door kind of like student jobs, cold calling in call centers, the whole basic thing that you do to kind of get into the world.
Yeah.
But that's probably something people don't know.
No, that's awesome. So just in terms of like getting into like the MMA kind of stuff, like I'm older than you. I'm going to take a wild guess at that. But, I would be coming late to the game, but I'm in shape, do cardio, play hockey, all that stuff. But if someone were to want to get started, would you like start with like a boxing kind of thing? Is there a particular, style that you would want to start with? Looking back. Yeah.
For sure, if you haven't done any kind of like combat sports training before, grappling / Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is probably the best to start because you can train very hard without injuring yourself. Like if you train very hard in boxing, hard sparring, you can have injuries. But like in grappling, you can go extremely hard and get extremely fit. And I was skinny, but I was muscular. Like I had almost 0% body fat because when you train for 2 hours grappling, like competition training, like 2-3 times a week was competition training. So just 2 hours of grappling essentially. You get so lean, insanely lean, to the point where it almost looks unhealthy. But yeah, BJJ is probably the best place to start, and then boxing. If you do grappling and boxing, you're probably fine. Because even on the street in like a self-defense situation, you don't have the ability to kick without falling on your face, or there's some kind of like the floor is slippery or some stuff. At least with boxing, you can self-defend, and then if they get close, you have grappling. So like when it comes to fighting, like people don't need to do much. If you train grappling for 3 to 5 months seriously and boxing for 3 to 5 months seriously, you can probably protect yourself in like 99% of situations. It's only like if you want to go serious or you want to make it a serious hobby, then you go way longer than that. We actually don't need that much time training. It's just getting comfortable.
Wow. Nice. All right. Noted. Maybe I'll take that advice and start with a little BJJ.
Oh, it's fun. So fun.
I've always wanted to. I just haven't had the time to do it. Like I say, I travel a good bit and run. I'd like to take a couple months at least to get started in it and learn, and it, like you said, obviously helps you get in shape. So we got a couple other questions here. So I mean, you talked a little bit about your past, so like knowing what you know now, just as a founder and whatnot, if in your professional life, like if you could go back like 10 years, is there any advice that you would give your 10-year younger self?
Buy Bitcoin. Pretty much. Yeah.
I missed a couple cycles, or the early cycles. Like I came in like 2017, 2018, but I'm glad I came in when I did. But man, you're so right, because another cycle before that, how good would things be?
Oh yeah,
now? But yeah,
man, because I remember in 2013, 2014, I was so back in the day when I was learning software engineering, you didn't have the luxury of going on YouTube and having these like 8-hour long tutorials learning a coding language. You had to go like deep into forums, deep into like code documentation and stuff. And I would often go to these like black hat / white hat forums, and they would be talking about Bitcoin. But I was young, so I didn't know anything about investing. I didn't know about cryptocurrency, so I just kind of let it slip. Then I started learning more serious about it in 2017. Made a little bit of money, nothing crazy. And then 2020 is when I got essentially full-time crypto, because I was like, okay, I've seen this for so long. This is definitely not going away. And that's when I started really going deep into crypto. But yeah, because like the thing with crypto is, if I had just bought whatever money I had or begged my dad to give me money, now I was old enough at that point. I'm thinking like 12 years old. I think I was 18 at that point. But if I would have put all my money I had into Bitcoin, I could do nothing for a career and still be rich as hell. That's the cool thing about crypto. So probably that advice.
Yeah, I mean, I've found that. I mean, I've had excellent success, thankfully, in crypto. I've been totally blessed. I've made some very good decisions with it. I mean, nobody's going to get every single call or trade or investment right. But the point is, I always tell everybody, is to win more than you lose. And if you could win harder on those wins, you're going to make it. But it's the patience aspect of it, and you just have to ride through some losses, and it's okay to take losses every now and then. But long-term themes, like if you get a Bitcoin, Ethereum, or a hex right, say if you're in early enough, and it could be right again because it's already like 8x off its bottom right now, so it could do that again from here. So it could be an opportunity for some people. TitanX, I mean, if you're in from the beginning, if you were minting, you're doing pretty darn good right now. Plus you're getting, I guess a end stake bonus dip perhaps for the next few days. So that could be an opportunity for some people. So it's just like sticking in the game and taking advantage of opportunities.
I mean, TitanX is showing some crazy numbers. So I was doing some math today, and on average, so the way TitanX came into existence is people mined it with their own private keys. So if nobody participated, 0 coins would exist. Literally 0 coins would exist. Yeah, not even the liquidity pool would exist. So 0 coins. All the tokens that came into existence was based on adoption. People mining it. Now all the miners are out. So all the supply is out and we're capped. So since around November 8th, but it actually started on November 14, 13-ish, we've been burning on average. Let me actually do the formula. And mind you, TitanX is only a $70 million market cap. So yeah, TitanX has been burning $300,000 of its own supply a day through protocols, not buy and burns. So it's burning almost 0.2% of its supply every day. So we've just entered the hyperdeflationary phase of TitanX. And then the interesting thing about market cap as well is if you burn half the supply, the market cap by default is half.
Yep.
It's like
it's
interesting.
I don't think people take that into account. So as the market cap goes down, like it goes down with the supply, but your percentage of it, increases. So it's like this double effect that I don't think too many people take into account for the long term. And it's like, man, your bags are growing, market cap coming down, and you have like so many people out there that are obsessed with market cap. Okay, well, what if your piece of the pie gets bigger? And that market cap, one day people realize, hey, this market cap's pretty darn low. Why is it so low? It should be way higher for what's going on here. And then market cap explodes, and then your gains explode along with it because you held that piece of the pie. So, yeah, man. All right, well, we're going to get into more TitanX. Just a couple more questions for you till we get into, I guess, some more history of TitanX, and then we'll bring it up to present day. So if you weren't a founder, maybe you touched on this a little bit, like what would you be doing if you didn't have this crypto thing?
Didn't have the crypto thing?
Yeah, or like a founder, like you're in crypto now.
So
that's what you're doing.
Okay. Yeah, I used to have a framework. So I've done very, very, very well. Like I was a millionaire before I started TitanX. Yeah. Close to, you can't really use the word multi unless you're like above 5, but definitely millionaire.
Yeah.
So I played crypto very well. So I had a framework I used to use. So one of the big parts of the framework was early or distressed. So when you take position to an asset, it needs to be either early or distressed. Early meaning you're one of the first people in the network, which means that the adoption grows with you. If you go from 1,000 users to 10,000 users, that's 100x in price, in theory, from like Metcalfe law. So you're either early or distressed. Distressed meaning it's a good asset, has a good community around it, there's building happening, there's innovation, you can see the data, but yet it's distressed and under fair value. Because crypto likes to operate in this like mean reversion way, where it goes overvalued, undervalued, overvalued, undervalued. So distressed is the undervalued part. So either early or distressed. That was one massive framework I used to use. And then the other thing is you want to have an edge. An edge usually comes from the ability to read data and see statistics and project it out into the future to try to understand how things will act a year from now. Because usually everybody operates in today. The more you can operate into the future and kind of future project what's happening, especially with hyperdeflationary stuff. Like another part of the framework was I didn't like inflationary stuff in general because I have a very, very long-term mindset. So when I take positions, I'm planning to be there for 10, 15 years, maybe even 20 years. Like, I don't think crypto is ever going to go away. Like, this is just a better version of the stock market. So 50 years from now, you just be holding the S&P 500 of crypto.
Yep.
And people will be DCAing into that. So early or distressed, non-inflationary, ideally hyperdeflationary, and an informational edge. And then the cool thing about blockchain is informational edge, you can get that from blockchain. Because you can just read the blockchain, you can look at the stats, you can track it every day, etc. And then another thing is, I've never participated in anything that had some type of VC backing. So I have a very, very hard no VC rule. Because usually venture capital is, hey, this thing is big, buy it, they launch at $1 billion valuation, people buy it up, they use it as exit liquidity, they have a $300 million bag, they sell it into a $20 million liquidity pool, they exit a percentage of the volume every day, and then the token just dumps. So it's just bump, dump. That's kind of the typical VC over a longer time frame. So no VCs, fair launch. That's a framework I used to use in crypto. So if I wasn't a founder, I would just use the same framework and just keep doing it with bigger capital amounts.
Nice. You said something interesting there about, I guess selling and liquidity and whatnot. Like with crypto, you can go look and see who's selling and, while, I mean, you might not know exactly who the person is, but you can at least see, a pattern of activity or something like that, whether, no matter the chain or coin really. In traditional markets, a lot of times you don't find out the big sellers until like after the quarter's over and some big filing. And it's just like, oh, that guy was dumping on me the whole time. And crypto, it's like, oh, look at this guy. He's got a huge bag. And, this is the guy that's harming price right now. So it's a really interesting dynamic that we have on this side that I truly enjoy over traditional markets, which I'm also heavily involved in. But I love it in crypto. Just be like, all right, what's going on with the price? And usually, especially with social media now, somebody's pinpointed a wallet and be like, all right, let this guy dump, let him finish or whatever. So it's cool like that.
The chain is awesome. Yeah, another reason for no VC stuff is like you see this a lot in crypto where something is like a $200 million market cap publicly, but then you look into the data and it's actually $5 billion fully diluted value, which means that there's $4.8 billion of potential sell pressure coming in the future just by VC unlocks. And it's like, if you're a beginner coming into crypto, that's literally a meat grinder. You just put your money in there and you essentially give it to the VCs and they move on to the next thing.
And before we move on, I'm seeing questions starting to pop up in the chat. If you're not familiar with the channel, I try to log all of the questions and then kind of try to bring them up during the topics that we discuss. So ask away, guys. Really appreciate it. And we'll try to get all of them done. I see Shogun questions, liquidity questions already. We had some, I guess, on Twitter before we even started, kind of similar to the Shogun thing. And we'll try to take care of all those as we go right through. We're talking about professions really quick. Is there something perhaps, in your experience or not that you just look at and be like, you know what, I would never want to do that, like just as a job?
Probably just admin stuff. Yeah, I need a lot of fast-paced action.
Yeah.
And anything.
Got it.
So probably that. Because even like, for example, because the first place my mind went was like garbage truck. But then that would actually be kind of fun. It's physical activity. If you have a good coworker, it kind of be fun. You're outside. Yeah. Like admin stuff, that's just soul sucking.
You're just like in a cube somewhere, and it's just like, ugh. Yeah, I'd rather like ride around, neighborhoods and throw trash in the back of a truck than sit in a cube and rot all day. Fair enough. And last question, Jake. Very important. What's your favorite curse word?
Fuck. Just the classic just hits, and you can use it in every scenario. Different intonation, and it's universal. My favorite word.
To the point. All right. Well, let's start to get into, I guess, just general markets and crypto, and then we're going to get into the TitanX ecosystem. How are you feeling right now just with overall markets? We have Bitcoin close to all-time highs. We're like right around 99K. Ethereum, we were just talking in the green room. It on a short-term basis, it's actually above its recent highs. So it's 34.70 right now. So that's pretty cool. I don't trust weekend moves, but it did at least break last week's like 34.50-ish, something like that. I don't like weekend moves just because there's less people involved in the markets and things can be sent a little further than they would otherwise be. But how are you feeling just general crypto post election? Like, we had a massive win here in the States, which is just gonna, I think, pour gasoline on this bullish fire that we've got going. Bitcoin, like I said, 99K all-time highs. Ethereum lagging, but what's your take on those big markets?
Good. I mean, we're just in a bull market. Like, even I did this publicly and privately. So I called the Bitcoin bottom on the day, 2 months in advance. Like, I announced the date in November. And then it was 100% set in stone the moment FTX collapsed. That was like, oh my God, thank God. That's the perfect bottom signal. I was like, this is it. This is it. Load up.
Yeah. I had it marked on my I have it marked on my Bitcoin chart. I do like little notes, not all the time, but just significant events. And that is kind of where it started. It was like, yep, there's FTX. And then it did the just the valley for like, I don't know, weeks or a couple months, and then boom, we were out of it. And like you said, that's pretty much where it started.
Yeah, so the bull market has been running for a while. Just the way altcoins kind of function is Bitcoin runs the majority of the market going into the second half, third half of the bull cycle. Then altcoins really start picking up and outperforming Bitcoin. But usually the first chunk is like Bitcoin, Ethereum. Ethereum has been lagging this cycle, but Bitcoin, Ethereum usually. And then Ethereum gets stronger at the end of the cycle, which coincides with alt season, because usually Bitcoin dominance stops around 60, 65%-ish. Then you see liquidity flow into Ethereum. Ethereum starts outperforming Bitcoin. And then that's when the altcoins go nuts. And that's where the real bull market that everybody's like euphoric and stuff comes from, because the money just flows from Bitcoin, which is a $1.8 trillion asset. Like, a lot of these altcoins only have $1 million, $2 million, like decent sized altcoins, $1 million, $2 million on the buy side, meaning ready to buy on market. So even if $100 million comes into altcoins, if only 2 million finds your token, that's a 4x. So like, this liquidity flow is just a natural cycle of the market. So now we're in the second half, third half, nearing the fourth half of the bull cycle. Now we're near alt season. This is when things start to go nuts. So we're only at the start of it. So this is the most exciting part of the market. And then when it comes to cycles, I just stick to cycle theory. I ignore everything else. Like, every cycle that has been the super cycle meme. This is super cycle. This one's different, and it isn't. Oh, super cycle. Oh yeah, nah, it isn't.
Yeah, we were just saying that on the show last night. It was like it works until it doesn't. Like, and it's following, like, especially like Bitcoin. You get post halving run, and global liquidity, ramping up, and it's just like the stars are aligning. Like, don't mess with it. And we couldn't break 70K BTC for the longest time, and everybody was saying like late summer it'd be like, this time's different. We're going down. We topped out, and it's just like, no, man, just hang on, because you get a move out of that range, it's going to be explosive. And sure enough, man, we are on a rocket ship right now, and that's just the majors. I mean, like you said, we're waiting on alt season, and then that's when things get totally nuts, if you're especially if you're holding the right stuff. Let me see. I'll actually bring this question up right now. Direct Source Solutions wants to know, do you think this cycle is different due to the retail going into BTC and not selling for alts? I guess maybe because of the ETF craze kind of thing. So a lot of that money is, you can see it from BlackRock and others just going right in. So maybe he's thinking that could be a little different this time, but maybe not as much as other people were saying.
Nah, not really, because the beginning of the life cycle is Bitcoin dominated, and then you see the money flow later on. But right now it's just playing out like every other cycle. The only difference with altcoins is it's way more dispersed. Like, Pump Fund is launching 10,000 plus tokens a day, so attention is very, very dispersed. It's a very ADHD gambling type market over there. Man, every time I watch any Solana thing, I get brain rot. Like, it's so bad. Oh my God! And all the memes coming from that, I was just, yeah, it's so bad over there that they're literally making memes and laughing at people stealing other people's money, because it's so normal and it's so bad that the only way to cope with it is humor. That's how bad it is over Solana. Like Ethereum doesn't have any of that. Ethereum is just nice, it's professional, it works, it's never down. Like even Sui went down, I think 2-3 days ago.
Yep.
Ethereum has never been down, ever.
Yep.
Like this is why institutions still opt for Ethereum, and Ethereum also has the Beam chain kind of roadmap, which is iterations over the next 5 years. So it will, just like Beam chain 0.0.1, and they just iterate. So the goal with Ethereum is to get all L2s to be interoperable, meaning that you have one dApp that interacts with all of them, so you don't have to switch chains. And then the other thing is Ethereum is aiming for 10 million transactions per second, and they have a way of getting there with the Beam chain. That is faster than Solana. So in the future, I kind of see this thing where everybody converges on one L1. And as long as Ethereum has that dominance when it comes to liquidity and volume, because Solana is catching up very well. But if Ethereum remains the dominant player, because the issue with Solana is the tokenomics are 50-50. Like with the price rise now, Solana inflates at $70 million a day to the reward validator.
Yeah. Wow.
Ethereum doesn't have any of that. It's static supply or deflationary. So institutions care about uptime. Institutions care about security. There's never been an issue with Ethereum when it comes to the security front and the uptime front. And then they have a roadmap of going to 10 million transactions per second. And the Solana competitive edge can also easily be, not easily, but it's not that hard to kill the competitive edge if you just fork SVM and put it as an Ethereum layer 2, and then everything becomes interoperable. So Ethereum could become a vortex and like still the dominant one going into the next year. But they need to execute the roadmap. Like 5 years, it's Ethereum, so maybe make it 8.
There's that word vortex. I've heard that word before, but we'll get to that in a bit because I do have some questions about that particular word and maybe a platform or project or two that has to deal with that. But let's start to get into the good stuff and why people are here. It's kind of a nice segue talking about Ethereum. How much did, and I believe I've heard you touch on this in the past, but how much did like the crypto/Ethereum cycle play out in the timing of the launch of TitanX, the ecosystem?
Oh man, it was nice. So we launched October 28. It was very hard to time the bottom at TitanX because we're building an audit and stuff. But October 28, the price was 1780. So not that far from the bottom. The bottom was 1200. So around the bottom. So it launched literally right before the first run up of Ethereum and the bull run. So it has done well. And even like so after from the TitanX bottom on the Ethereum pair, we're up 450% against Ethereum, or 350%, which is a 4.5x versus Ethereum. So TitanX has had that interesting thing with day 280. So people started miners. Day 280 was the longest a miner could go, where you could create the most supply, wait the longest. When day 280 happened, everybody was expecting a dump.
Yep.
On day 280, all world markets collapsed. Everything went down 10, 20, 30%, including S&P 500. Obviously not 10%, but like significant dump.
Yeah.
Everything collapsed. Ethereum collapsed, and that's when TitanX started its run. And only 10 days ago, we hit hyperdeflation, which is a thing we've all been waiting for. Because the thing with TitanX is I wanted it to be fair launch, and the only way you can make something fair launch is by giving everybody an equal opportunity. Because meme tokens often tout this idea of a fair launch, but the way meme tokens work is you have 1 million supply, you put it in the liquidity pool, sniper bots buy 50% of it, you come in, you buy 50x higher, the next guy comes in, he buys 80x higher, and then everybody gets wrecked, and then everybody ends up buying 20, 30x higher, etc. But the real fair launch for me is everybody has the same opportunity based on whether or not they're willing to put the time in. So with TitanX, you had time and Ethereum. So how much are you willing to put into the protocol, and how long are you willing to wait to get bigger chunks of the supply? So the longer you waited, you get more. So to day 280 was when most of the supply came out, and now we're day 370, and we've just exited. Is it 370? We've just entered hyperdeflation. So the first fair launch token distribution phase is out because we wanted to build a big community, give everybody a fair opportunity, because we wanted to have a very, very thick builder ecosystem. And the only way you get a thick builder ecosystem is to make it fair and allow people to gain percentages of supply so that when they build on that, they're personally incentivized to build on it, not only because of the developer reward, but also because they have a big stake in the network, so they want to see it succeed. And that's only possible through a true fair launch like TitanX did it, instead of just a meme coin launch. Because if a builder comes in and he's 5 minutes late and he needs to buy 30x higher, he's not building on that shit. So it needed to be fair. I just went on a rant.
Yeah, man.
Was that helpful?
That's why you're here.
Yeah.
I'm sure the audience loves it. So yeah. All right. So yeah, that's kind of like the timing of the launch. What would you say, like, if someone were to ask you, like, right now, like, what is TitanX? Like, how would you respond to that? Because like when it started, I believe, you know, the main quote was like, it's a leverage play on Ethereum, which I think a lot of people can consider it still to be. But has that evolved any over the past year, or, you know, how would you describe it right now?
Oh, it's definitely a leverage play on Ethereum now, because it was a leverage play while it was hyperinflationary, which is the crazy part. Now we're hyper-deflationary. We're burning $200,000, $300,000 a day. It's only a 70 million-ish market cap. Those are insane numbers. Like,
Yep.
it blows my mind. And that's all 90% plus from users taking TitanX and participating in the ecosystem. That's where the burn comes from. It's not even the buy and burns. The buy and burns are like 7-10% of the daily burn. It's not much at all. But that's the crazy part. So we're even more of a leverage play versus Ethereum now. But I think the simplest way to describe TitanX is we took a different approach to L1. So with L1, you have two options. Either you create your own island, create a bridge to Ethereum, and hope people come to your island and visit it. But you're completely detached from the liquidity, from the users, from the network, from the dev tools. You're completely detached from everything. And you hope people bridge over to your island and kind of build their little city there. That's a very hard approach to take. So I was thinking, instead of building own L1 or L2 and then having to inflate to reward validators to run the network, what if you just build an L1 within an L1? And that's essentially what TitanX is. So TitanX exists on Ethereum. With X28, it will exist on all chains. X28 is just one-to-one omni-chain TitanX. But with TitanX, you exist within the chain. So you don't need to inflate to reward validators. You can just exist on the infrastructure of Ethereum or any chain. And people can build on top of that token. So it gets the network effects, it gets the builders, it holds all the liquidity paired to it like a normal L1 token. Take liquidity pairs everywhere. And make it hyper-deflationary because you don't need to inflate to make the network survive and reward validator. So that's TitanX is basically a hyper-deflationary fair launched L1 token within L1, which is Ethereum. And now it's going to be the L1 token within all chains once X28 starts rolling out the other chains. And all of it comes from Ethereum on the other chains. That's the crazy part.
Love it, love it. Yeah, there definitely is a method behind everything here once you like get deep into it. And you know, I had no idea what I was getting into when I first got into TitanX, and then things just kept, you know, building and building and building on it. You know, I want to shout out just like personally, like Crypto Kool-Aid, Lights Out, Marco the Hexagon for kind of, you know, steering me, you know, in the TitanX direction. You know, I'm not a day oneer, but I got in, you know, pretty darn early. And thanks to them, you know, just like, bro, just take a look. And, you know, I did. And, you know, I'm very happy with, you know, things so far and truly excited for the future. And it feels to me like being, you know, a very early day one hexagon, the excitement feels like what Hex was back then. And, you know, I'm still like a big believer in Hex. We got that SEC court case coming up, or hopefully dismissal soon, and that thing could take off again. And you know, my Hex bags are the biggest they've ever been. So it's not like, you know, I left that to come over to TitanX. I have Ethereum. You know, I had Ethereum, and you know, it's always good to have Ethereum, or at least some stables that you can hold to buy Ethereum when it's down, and then to get into other stuff. And thankfully, I did that. So shout out to those guys. So you know, just kind of going over the first year of it, since it's been like a little over a year. Were there any like truly surprising moments like in that first year? You know, that you were just like, dang man, like I did not see that coming, or that is wild, like it just blows my mind. Like you got a few of those, or just one, doesn't matter.
The biggest thing was the builder adoption. The build on TitanX adoption. That was the biggest
I
thing.
would agree with you.
Yeah, because that's insane. Because building a crypto is not easy.
Yeah.
So seeing people take that leap and put trust in the system to build on it, the amount of people is just a crazy thing. So we're only a year old, and there's already 22 protocols live on top of TitanX. That's more than some L1s that are worth billions of dollars. Actual working protocols have a ton of volume. Like the TitanX ecosystem is 1% of all the volume on Ethereum runs through the TitanX ecosystem. That's a crazy statistic. Yeah, so 22 protocols are currently live, and there's, because I'm looking on TitanXHub.com, and there's 21 being built, and Shogun is not even on the list, so 22.
Yeah, we have a lot of antsy when Shogun comments in the chat, so we will get to that. I promise you, it is, there's a method, to what we're doing here. We're building up. We're going through the history, and you mentioned, the building that has occurred with TitanX. I mean, there's, so many projects out there, Helios, Inferno, Dragon X, like Morpheus recently, like everything. So if I could, if you could entertain me, and if I could call out, a few of these, just give me, a sentence or two of what like first comes to mind about, this thing that's built on TitanX. I guess we can start with Dragon X.
Hyperdeflationary leverage on TitanX.
Morpheus.
Very good branding, and we'll have essentially a DEX buy and burn attached to it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens with that, because that's kind of the equivalent of Pateus over on Pulse Chain, which has seen massive adoption and success. So that's going to be awesome, like for the TitanX ecosystem. Can't wait for that. Jumping ahead here, but let me bring it back. Inferno.
Hyperdeflationary meme-fi. So, okay, this is kind of on topic.
Yeah.
The cool thing about the ecosystem now is, since TitanX entered hyperdeflationary protocols built on top of TitanX, that's essentially hyperdeflationary leverage built on top of a hyperdeflationary foundation. It's like hyperdeflationary on hyperdeflationary on hyperdeflationary. That's never seen before. That's I'm going to be very curious to see how that plays out, because it's all paired to each other. Like, so for example, Inferno is priced in TitanX. So if one Inferno is one TitanX, for example, if TitanX is worth $1, just to use a random.
What kind of effect did you do there? That's pretty cool.
I don't know. Yeah, so with Inferno, if Inferno is one TitanX, it's priced and paired with TitanX. If one TitanX is $1 and then TitanX goes from $1 to $2, that means Inferno by default goes to $2, because it's one TitanX. It's not $1 or €1 or one whatever. That's the cool thing about the ecosystem. Since everything is priced against each other, they all go up together by default. So everything can pump just by one thing having a run, which is, I think, the vertically stacked liquidity pools is what we call it. It's probably the biggest innovation we've had in our ecosystem. And getting everybody to stick to it. That's probably because it's not like I'm forcing. Everybody was like, hey, here's the ethos. I'm following it because it makes sense. So that was great.
The Mo says fireworks. The TitanX OG. Good to see you, man. Been watching a lot of your streams, of course, cryptographics, kindness, all the guys. So shout out to all y'all who have been putting out the TitanX content. Couple more, like Helios.
Helios is mining platform on TitanX, and it's also going to go omni-chain. I think he's also going to do an X28 approach on Helios.
And last but not least, let's go with actually two more. Volt.
Innovation. Yeah, fair launch innovation and hyperdeflationary.
And lastly, Hydra.
Mining, compounding mining protocol, leveraging DragonX.
And since we're talking protocols, what in your mind is the most underrated protocol right now that's not giving the love that you think it might be more deserving of?
There's two that come to mind. Ouroboros, which is going to come with multi-collateral lending on the TitanX ecosystem. So people are going to be able to take loans without selling their assets against all high liquidity assets in the TitanX ecosystem. Very interesting. That, and then X28, because it still needs to get adoption. Adoption is pretty good, but it's nothing crazy. But once Shogun builds on top of X28, you'll probably see that one. X28 and Ouroboros are probably two big innovations on TitanX. And then to pick a third, probably Inferno and Volt. I like them a lot. DragonX is kind of a given because it's like it was the first, it's the biggest. It leverages TitanX. Great builder team. They built Titan Farms. Oh yeah, Titan Farms. Yeah, Titan Farms is the biggest, one of the biggest DeFi innovations I've ever seen built. And I helped them. It was kind of like a team effort to come up with the tokenomics. But the idea of using the liquidity fees that the farms generate to buy and burn the farm token is bonkers. It's insane. That Titan Farms is an amazing innovation.
And that is definitely on the list to dive into here in a bit. Let me see. I thought you might have said like Hyper, but can you talk a little bit about Hyper? Like that's kind of been like the underperformer. It's like I would say of the ecosystem, it's the one where like the cartoon has the stick and Hyper's on the ground, it's poking it, and it's like do something kind of thing. But it's doing its thing. Just everything's working. It's still there. Can you talk about Hyper a little bit?
Yep. So the reason Hyper was designed is since TitanX becomes extremely hard to create over time, like it's pretty much cap supply now. It'll probably have maybe another mining cycle, but it's going to be so small, like maybe 2% of the total supply, which is a lot of Ethereum entering the protocol. But the reason Hyper was created is to offload mining from TitanX to Hyper. So Hyper is this interesting compounding thing because it doesn't really get harder to create over time, except for Ethereum price appreciation, because you need to create miners based on Ethereum. So if Ethereum goes up, it becomes harder to mine Hyper, but it doesn't go up as heavy as TitanX. It's very, very, very slow. So Hyper was designed to be a compounding protocol where people go in, they mine, then they sell, they mine again. Whenever it's profitable, it's something that operates in cycles, similar to Hydra. So mining will be profitable, which kickstarts a mining frenzy, which burns TitanX in the process. People compound their ROIs, and that's kind of why these mining protocols exist. So Hyper is doing what it's designed to do. There's also three protocols building on top of Hyper. One is Warp, the other one is Turbo by Volt, and Matrix by Mike Dean. So there's protocols coming on top of Hyper as well. And then Hyper relies a lot on TitanX price performance because it's priced in TitanX. So since it's priced in Ethereum to create a miner, meaning it's X amount of Ethereum to create a miner, and then you go however long you want to go. And then the second thing is it's priced in the liquidity pool at TitanX. So if TitanX is a 2x, the mining ROI on Hyper does a 2x because TitanX outperformed Ethereum by a 2x. So that's where the big difference comes from. So Hyper, you'll see revive as soon as TitanX moves up. That was kind of like the innovation design behind Hyper. And then we took that to another level with Hydra being priced in TitanX. So it's going to cap a lot faster, and it's leveraged on DragonX. So those are two big experiments when it comes to mining protocols. Because TitanX was very clear, fair launch distribution, create the supply, make it extremely hard to create, so it's essentially naturally capped supply, and then we can go hyperdeflationary. That was the design intention for TitanX, and then Hyper and Hydra are the compounding mining cycles within the ecosystem.
Yeah, I had plenty of times gotten Hydra and Hyper confused when referencing either one. Is just like, couldn't they have been slightly different first couple letters? But I'm into both, love them both, and yeah, it's just exciting what's going on and what is to come. Talking about kind of the first year still. I know there are plenty in the community. I'm guessing yourself, do watch, I guess, some of the significant players, I would guess, their wallets, I would say. plenty of that goes on. I think it's responsible to do so, especially for founders of any protocol, really, to see like what's going on. You probably don't obviously know who's behind the addresses or anything like that, but are there any really interesting wallets out there? It'd be like, oh well, this guy did this, he's like a really good actor. I was surprised that this guy chose to go this direction with providing liquidity or staking or something like that. Where there's some bad ones to be like, oh man, they're just flopping back and forth between other chains. Like, are there any like notable ones to be like, huh, I didn't expect that, or that's pretty cool that that guy did that?
There have been groups of bad actors, and I'm saying groups very specifically because I also know of some.
Oh, okay.
Inside baseball, basically. But yeah, there have been some big groups, bad groups that have been trying to attack TitanX, but they failed in every way possible. So that's good. They're out. And then there are good wills. There's a lot of good wills, especially when it comes to liquidity pools, because we have a group in TitanX called Titans of LP. It's a community-made group. I have over, I think, close to 800 members now. And it's all people providing liquidity across all TitanX assets in the ecosystem. And they're kind of like, how would you say it, the LP guardian angel of the ecosystem next to farms, because they know how to play these liquidity pools and protect against whales, etc.
Mm-hmm. That's
been pretty cool to watch. Other than that, just some bad wallets. Other than that, there's very responsible whales. Like, for example, so this is interesting about TitanX. Since so much is built on top of TitanX and it all requires TitanX, that means the biggest holders, 23 of the top 50 on TitanX holders, the 23 biggest whales are smart contracts, not users. And smart contracts aren't dumping.
Yep.
That's something very interesting, and that's only going to increase with more protocols coming on the scene. Because these protocols are just going to eat up supply, and they're essentially going to become the biggest holders of the machine. So then TitanX is basically ran by the machines at that point, which is a crazy phenomenon. Yeah, if you go on Etherscan, you can see it. 23 of the top 50, and I think it's 35 of the top 100 are all smart contracts. So they're very benevolent actors. They're as benevolent as you can get them. And then a couple groups of bad actors, but they're out. Like, they were very, very amateur when it comes to an attempt to hurt TitanX. Very, very amateur. I mean, if I wanted to hurt something, I could do it really bad for a very, very long time. Well, just kind of like amateur stuff. I think it was some pettiness or whatever, but they're out. It was fine. They actually dumped the bottom, which is kind of funny. It's 2x higher than what they dumped.
It usually happens like that. Especially like peak FUD and things like that. So I guess speaking of FUD, I guess the latest thing that's been brought up is like oh well, liquidity concerns, and there's more moving off the ecosystem now, and there's been some back and forth on that. Do you want to just speak a little bit about that? Because to me, like, with more and more builders coming on, more and more adoption coming on, like that's the backdrop and foundation that you would want for a protocol. And of course you're going to have funds leaving the system. You've seen it with Pulse Chain. People were fudding that, and since the bottom there, it's like already 8x'd, and people were like, it's dead, all the money's moving away from it, and now it's 8x since then. So I personally think that is very likely to happen with TitanX. But what are your thoughts on the liquidity situation and perhaps FUD?
Yeah, so the way you counter FUD is by pure hard cold data. So we'll go over the data in a bit. But one of the cool things is when it comes to liquidity, this is such a doomsday scenario. It's more money is leaving than is entering. Yeah, that's called a dip. It's called people selling. That happens with every crypto, including Bitcoin. Like, people like try to pinpoint it down. Like, yeah, TitanX, it has sellers. I'm like, what's your point? That's any crypto ever. Yeah, when Bitcoin goes down, there's more money leaving the crypto ecosystem than enters the ecosystem. It's normal. It's part of price action. But then the other cool part of liquidity, I did the math. So liquidity is based relatively. So here's some crazy numbers, and this is not a fake number. So TitanX is 8.88x. That's a real number. 8.88x more liquid than Bitcoin, relatively. So, for example, Bitcoin, because Bitcoin primarily trades on centralized exchanges, there's some smaller pools on dexes, but it's nothing compared to centralized exchanges. So Bitcoin has roughly $9 billion of liquidity sitting in the order books, full range, just not like around price order book, but assuming full range based on the 2% depth. $9 billion of liquidity. It's a $1.8 billion asset. Only $9 billion of liquidity. That's like having a $180 million asset with only $900,000 in liquidity. That's small, and Bitcoin is doing just fine. So that's one thing. So compared to TitanX, 90 million market cap. I did in this calculation. So 90 million market cap, 2 million of that is Ethereum side. So buy side. No, sell side. Yeah. So 2 million Ethereum, $90 million market cap. That means we have a market cap to liquidity ratio of 1 to 45. And Bitcoin's market cap to liquidity ratio is 1 to 400. So we're 8.88, because if you do 400 divided by 45, you get 8.88x. So we're almost 9 times as liquid as Bitcoin. So whoever's coming up with that FUD needs to run some real numbers, because we're massively liquid. And a lot of our protocols are even in the top 20 of liquidity on all of Ethereum.
Yeah, that stat before of like, that was just kind of wild. And I didn't even put that all together, but I'm sure you monitor it way more closely than I do. But just the power of that number alone of the entire Ethereum ecosystem is just wild to think about. Let's see. So we've kind of gone over, the first year of TitanX and kind of like finishing up, I guess, that first year. You mentioned before, but I wanted you to talk a little bit about Titan Farms, because I think it's just an outstanding platform. I use it plenty. The rewards are still like insane, no matter like what farm you're wanting to be in. That's just the benefit of getting there early, especially if you happen to have some of the coins that just start their farm, like we did. I think it was like last week or something like that. Maybe a new farm started and the APY was like 5,000 something percent if you got in early. We have plenty of, obviously, Pulse Chain, Pulse X users in here. So Pulse X has its version of the farms. Again, I am a huge fan of Richard Hart and Pulse X, but one of the biggest things that I was not satisfied with was the launch of Pulse X and the farms, because they had to do pretty much a split a V1 and a V2, because the fees were supposed to be, along with the reward token, which is ink. And then now you had to choose, V1 versus V2. Do you want the reward token, or do you want, the fees? Can you, talk about how Titan Farms came about, and maybe some differences between that and like a Pulse X farm, since a lot of the audience understands what Pulse X is, and I think maybe that would provide a good kind of comparison / insight as to how cool Titan Farms is.
Yeah. So the way farm tokens usually work is a token that just inflates, has no buy pressure. It just increases supply to reward liquidity providers. Nah. Imagine raising $1 billion to build something and running 0 audits. How is anybody okay with that? Because, for example, TitanX was triple audited. It cost me $150,000 out of my own pocket. I raised $0 to build TitanX. Hyper cost me $80,000. Hydra cost me $60,000. X28 cost me $60,000. Shogun is probably going to cost me $50,000, $60,000 ish. I spent over close to $500,000 building stuff for the ecosystem, and I've raised $0. And I get 3 audits on everything. 2 audits here, 3 audits here, 4 audits on some stuff. Like Shogun is going to have practically 4 audits. Yeah, that's just something insane. Like I just can't wrap my head around it. It's not that expensive to buy an audit.
Right.
Yeah, because they would have caught that liquidity thing instantly. So the thing with the difference between a farm token, so a farm token usually inflates. and just gets given away for free. So it's inflation given to the user. And then you hope people buy in a market, because that's the only liquidity that exists, is people buying in a market or providing liquidity in the farm token, native token pair. The way Titan Farms is different is it's still a farm token that inflates, but it has this thing called input tokens. So input tokens are, for example, TitanX. So all the TitanX fees it accrues within the farms go and buy and burn Tink. So Tink is essentially a bet on liquidity and volume of the ecosystem. And Tink will always have a fair value because it always has a guaranteed buyer. It's not an inflationary only coin, because a buy and burn buys it on market, so it injects liquidity into the liquidity pool. Which means that you have a buy and burn, you have a guaranteed buyer, which means that is a fair value to a farm token in Titan Farms' case. Because you can calculate the buy pressure over time, which gives it a fair value. And the market will probably overvalue it like they do any asset, because the liquidity pool is always smaller than the market cap. So you get this oversized move. Yeah, but it's basically a farming token with a buy and burn based on the volume in the ecosystem, because it takes a percentage of that and buys and burns itself. So it's not an inflationary only token. It's similar. I guess you can compare it to Ethereum, because Ethereum inflates the reward validated, but it burns through transaction fees. So Titan Farms inflates the reward liquidity providers, but it burns itself through the liquidity fees. So the supply might just level out with the guaranteed buyer, because he doesn't care what price he buys at. That was a massive innovation. And there's a lot of like advanced code. Like they did a lot of work, spent a lot of money on audits to get that thing safe.
Yeah, and let's see, I guess, Tink versus Ink, like there are things that are being built specifically to burn Tink. Is that right? Like,
Yep.
So Eric, who I follow, and the very smart dude, and with Dragon X, like he's sometimes emphasized the importance, or just like, you don't know how important like a healthy Tink token is. Like, could you expand like a little bit on that? Like, why is it important for that to be like super strong? Because I wish on the Pulse Chain side that things were being built to burn ink. Maybe I think there's like one or two things, I know there are, but I would certainly love more. And but TitanX ecosystem, it's like every protocol, how there's like 2 or 3 devs, it seems like, they're just out there like, how can we burn this, how can we burn this, so it's like, can you explain like the importance of Tink?
Yeah, Tink attracts liquidity to the ecosystem. So for example, a wrapped Ethereum TitanX, which is kind of the main pool of the ecosystem, has 133% APR. That's APR. So the difference between APR and APY, because a lot of farming platforms, you'll see this all over the place. There's a big difference between APR and APY. APR assumes you just take the rewards and you do whatever with them. APY assumes compounding. So the difference can be massive. If you compound, like for example, on the TitanX wrapped Ethereum pair, if you compound daily for a year, the rewards go up from 123% to 300% a year. So that's the difference between APR and APY. So what a lot of these farming platforms do is they lie to their users and they display APY instead of APR, which is why you go into some of these pools and you get way less rewards than what was projected, because they assume compounding on the dashboard. So Titan Farms is way more honest and way more pure, because it shows APR, and then you have a calculator where you can do the compound calculation on your own. But that's pretty crazy. That's just user misinformation and misleading people and lying. Essentially, a lot of dashboards do that. Yeah, you see this all over farms, all over crypto. Yeah, so for example, the wrapped Ethereum TitanX pair, 133% APR, 300% if compounded, which is APY. That's pretty sick, because now TitanX is hyperdeflationary. Ethereum is a blue chip, so you're earning rewards holding 2 positions that you would hold anyway. A hyperdeflationary asset with a bunch of things built on top of it, paired with a blue chip. That's like a cool pair. 133% APR, because I would consider this a relatively safe pair. Not financial advice, obviously, but I would consider this a relatively safe pair. And usually safe pairs give you like 5-7%, maybe 20% if you're crazy. So like Titan Farms is doing very well. So what it does is it attracts liquidity into the ecosystem. And the higher the Tink price goes, the more liquidity we attract. And when people provide liquidity, they essentially take tokens off market, meaning that they can't dump at the press of a button. They have to press 2 buttons. But it's essentially semi-locked liquidity, which also creates this like epic supply sync across the entire ecosystem. So the buy and burns can do more damage because they can burn more tokens, they eat less slippage, and the buy pressure stays because everybody's in the pool enjoying their essentially passive yield. So it did a lot for the ecosystem. Like you saw liquidity almost 3 to 5x overnight. That was insane across all pairs basically.
Right, and that is farms as we continue the evolution of TitanX. So next up, I think the natural place to go, and this is like a lot's happening like right now or within like recent weeks. So we're flying by. It's already been an hour, and we haven't even gotten to X28 yet. So we're going to get to that. We have across all platforms right now like over 1,000 viewers. So this is awesome. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're going to get into X28 now. So this recently launched. This is like omni-chain. Like this is huge, and I think it's probably being way underestimated right now, but it's probably just because I think this is like the long game play. So it's not something that people see kind of like more immediate volatility or results from. But could you explain what X28 is and kind of how in the long term like this could be, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think it could be absolutely huge.
Yeah. So the original vision of TitanX was to become the L1 within the L1, but there's a bunch of L1s and L2s in crypto. You have Arbitrum, Base, Solana, etc. So one thing I hate about crypto, so I'm a very, very long-term investor and a long-term user. And I hate seeing protocols launch on one chain and then dilute themselves in the community by launching the same protocol on the second chain, and then you basically force people to sell one to get the other. I hated that. So I wanted a solution because you want to get the adoption of all the chains without essentially diluting your community and making people PvP against each other instead of helping each other.
Yep.
So the way you do that is layer 0. I like layer 0. There's other bridging solutions, but I like layer 0 because it's non-custodial. Because usually the way a bridge works is, here's my tokens, you send it to the smart contract, it mints a representation on the other side of the chain, gives it to you. And then you hope there's liquidity on the other side. That is scary. Now, there is some stuff like the Pulse Chain Bridge, for example, as Omni Bridge, which has never been hacked. So that was a very, very good pick. But in general, in crypto, bridge histories have been horrible. $600 million hacks, $800 million hacks. And that's because the smart contracts own the tokens that people are bridging out. So, for example, if you go Ethereum bridge to Base, if the smart contract holds the tokens, oftentimes these bridges are not even decentralized. They hold admin keys. So what happens with these bridges, sometimes it's a code bug, but oftentimes it's a hiring hack. So they hire some North Korean IT worker, then he somehow gets access to the keys on the network, and then he essentially rugs all the assets off the bridge. One, why the fuck does a bridge have a withdrawal function? Like, how are people accepting this? That's insane. So the way layer 0 essentially solved it is if you go from, for example, Ethereum to Base, so the X28 is 1-to-1 TitanX. So you can always get one X28 for one TitanX. So it's kind of like an omni-chain wrapper is another way to look at it, but with some interesting mechanics. But people will be able to take X28 from Ethereum. What layer 0 does, it burns it on Ethereum, sends it to a decentralized verifier network or messaging network, and then sends a message to the layer 0 contract on Base, which then talks to the X28 contract on Base to mint X28 tokens back to the user on Base. So it's a burn and mint instead of a lock in a smart contract, hope it doesn't get stolen and you lose all of your money. It's you burn it with your own private keys, decentralized messaging network, send it to the other chain, and mints it on the other chain. So that's why it's called a non-custodial bridge. It's way, way, way safer and more secure. Because even if something happens to the layer 0 code, you're fine. You still have your tokens. Nobody has your tokens in their hand. No smart contract has your tokens. You burn them on one chain, mint them on the other chain. And that's essentially a non-custodial bridge. So what layer 0 allows us to do is X28 allows us to go to all chains. And all the supply comes from Ethereum. So if 1 billion X28 exists, to use an easy number, if somebody bridges 100 million X28 from Ethereum to Base, and now burns 100 million on Ethereum, mints 100 million on Base, which shrinks the Ethereum supply because it's now trading on all the other chains, which means that whatever buy and burn effects happen on Ethereum is way more impactful, and it pushes up X28 across all chains. Whereas something crazy happens to X28 on Solana, it drags up the price of all chains because arbitrage bots can instantly arbitrage it across all chains using layer 0. There's arbitrage bots that use that. So for example, if it's trading at $2 on Solana, at $1 on Ethereum, they will buy it on Ethereum, bridge it to Solana, sell them on Solana, and it makes the prices equal across all chains at all times. PancakeSwap also has this omni-chain model. Yeah, so X28 is just omni-chain TitanX, and it will allow us to essentially take our builder community to all chains. So if somebody wants to build a high transaction application, they can do it on Base or on Solana or etc. And that will roll out over time. So we'll do chain by chain for X28. Right now, it's only Ethereum. And you can add networks as they come out in the future by just setting a pair, essentially. So you need to deploy the contract there, set a pair, and then people can bridge across chains. So we can add chains going into the future. Yeah.
Covered a lot.
Yeah, because the bridging thing is a big one. I like Layer 0 a lot. I think they're brilliant, guys. The token is meh. It's VC back thing, but the protocol doesn't intertwine with the token. It's just a decentralized protocol existing in cyberspace. So I like it.
So that is Shogun. Now we look for the future. So I don't know how far in the future, like, you know, it could be very soon, but everybody on the socials and in this chat right here that I'm viewing is excited for a little something called Shogun. So let's dive into that, because that's been all the rage. And I know, you know, we were gonna try to stream earlier this month, and you know, you've been quite busy, as everybody can see. But man, it's about business is about to pick up, you know, once again. So if you thought X28 was like, oh my gosh, I think you know, when for really and for something with Shogun. So Shogun's going to be like an auction process. I mean, maybe I'm jumping ahead there a little bit, but I guess, you know, start from wherever you want, maybe with what Shogun is, and then how the process is going to go. I believe the white paper is out, or at least the basics of it are published now, so people can go there and read it. You know, talk about Shogun.
So Shogun is going to be built on X28, which is essentially TitanX. So Shogun, it's going to be fair launch, like always. There's going to be 100 million tokens coming out for 28 days. So 100 million every day for 28 days, which makes the supply 2.8 billion. There's another 100 million minted to create liquidity pairs with everything in the ecosystem. But users aren't auctioning for that. So users get the auction for 2.8 billion Shogun. 2.8 billion, and that's it. So there's a 28-day distribution window where people can get their supply fairly by auctioning for it. So the way an auction works is, for example, if you have 100,000 Shogun up for auction, every Shogun is $1. If you go into the auction, let's assume $100,000 goes into the auction, and we'll talk about how the auction works. But $100,000 enters the auction to get $100,000 worth of tokens. If you went in with 10,000 out of the 100,000, you get 10% of that day's supply's emission. And that emission stops at day 28. So it's a 28-day fair distribution. After that, it's only hyperdeflationary hardcore. Hardcore hyperdeflationary. So you get your percentage of the supply based on your percentage of the auction compared to everybody else. So it's kind of like a bidding war. That's the auction percentage, the auction stuff. Now, the way you get into the auction is interesting. So there's two options to get into the auction. Now, one is only open for 28 days. After 28 days, that one disappears. So during the first 28 days, you can enter either with liquid X28. So you can just take your TitanX, turn it into X28, use that to go into the Shogun auction. And then the other option is you can use TitanX stakes. So a lot of people have been asking for that, so I just added it in. So with TitanX stakes, let's say you have 10 billion TitanX staked. If you want to enter the Shogun auction, you need to match it with 10 billion liquid. So you have 10 billion in a stake, 10 billion liquid. When you enter the auction, the stake gets burned forever. So that supply is gone. The other 10 billion buys, 8% goes towards liquidity, which will spread across the pairs, which we'll talk about in a bit. And then the other percentage buys X28. So the TitanX will buy X28, and then the X28 will buy Shogun, and then burn Shogun. So the TitanX will essentially be used to buy and burn Shogun, just through that specific route, which pushes up the X28 price and then the Shogun price, because Shogun is paired with X28. That's the TitanX part. And then once you enter with 10 billion staked TitanX and 10 billion liquid TitanX, you get 20 billion in the auction. And every TitanX and every X28 gets looked at the same, regardless of price. So if, for example, X28 is trading at 0.5 TitanX per X28, you get one TitanX worth of value in the auction. So you basically get 300%. So that's hard-coded. One X28 is one TitanX. Now, after the 28 days, that staking portion will go away. and it's only liquid X28. Now, where will the auctions come from after day 28 if it's not inflation? So that is called the war chest. So the war chest, 8% of that war chest will be auctioned off after day 280. And that war chest comes from taxes. So buy and sell taxes and transfer taxes is done on a transfer function. So 8%. Now, of that tax, half of the Shogun in that tax gets burned. The other half gets essentially sent to the war chest to get auctioned off into the future. Another thing is, another way that war chest fills up for the perpetual auctions after day 28 that are not inflationary is 50% of the buy and burn. Let me actually pull up the white paper. So the buy and burn, 50% of the Shogun that is bought off market goes to the war chest. So the thing that people are bidding on after day 28 is Shogun that was either bought off market or gotten through taxes. And half of what is bought off market gets burned and half of the taxes gets burned. So now then the question becomes, who is buying and selling to generate all this stuff, except for the buy and burn? That's going to buy regardless. But who's selling, who's buying and selling and transferring? The answer to that is arbitrage bots. So what Shogun, I like calling them price fixer bots because it's easier to understand. So Shogun will be paired with everything in the ecosystem. So it will have close to 30, 35 pairs, 20, it's anywhere between 20 and 35 pairs within the ecosystem. So the way Uniswap works is every pair has its own price. So for example, X28 Shogun and Inferno Shogun have two different prices because it depends on the ratio in the pair. So what you might have is Shogun is $1 in the X28 Shogun pair, but $1.20 in the Inferno Shogun pair because Inferno made a move or whatever. What the arbitrage bots will do, it will buy through the X28 Shogun pair to get it for $1 and then sell in the Inferno Shogun pair to sell it for $1.20. So they're essentially fixing the prices across all pools. Now on Ethereum, they do this with a very high volume. So there was another project that did this in the ecosystem, Element 280. It's using a different approach. It's giving it back to the holder. I like Element 280 a lot. And what we saw there is during the distribution phase, because a lot of that price fixing stuff only happens through high adoption. It doesn't exist just through a token existing. There needs to be high adoption, high volume, high transactions. It doesn't just exist. Like you have to have adoption. That creates all these different prices across all these pairs that arbitrage bots constantly run through. So for example, Element 280 had $3 million of volume a day during the distribution period, which was also 28 days. Now, if I did the math, it's roughly 70% of it. So $2.1 million a day was arbitrage bots fixing the price across all pairs because Element 280 also has 30 pairs. That's $2.1 million arbitrage price fixer bot volume only. Now, if half of that gets burned in Shogun, that's $1 million of Shogun burned a day if we get to that same volume level. Just through transfer tax alone, not even accounting for buy and burn. So that's where the volume will come from because it will exist on all these pairs and the pairs will grow into the future as more stuff launches in the ecosystem. And all that volume essentially burns Shogun and feeds the war chest, which is essentially supply bought off market or gotten off market or gotten through a tax that people can auction off into the future, which then feeds the buy and burn, etc. Yeah, so Shogun is a big bet on price, fixer volume. And even if the price fixer volume is low, Shogun itself is amazing. It's just the price fixer volume is the massive icing. It's like you have this nice cake, and the price fixer volume is like the icing, just completely covering the cake. Still icing, but it's pretty sick icing. Yeah.
So question that was raised early on, but since we're talking about Shogun, I wanted to bring it up now. Why was the auction format chosen instead of minting for Shogun?
Yeah, because I wanted to create a hyperdeflationary asset, and fair launches are cool with the minting stuff, but I also just want to flex on people with a chart now. So yeah, because that's the only attack angle they have is like, hey, look at this. Yeah, that's what all the tokens were distributed, dumbass. That's how it works. When you hyperinflate, the price goes down, and then you hyperdeflate and the price goes up. That's how simple economics work. So I wanted to have a nice chart, but I still wanted to make a fair launch where the users create the tokens. So with an auction, essentially what happens, an auction usually closes out around market price, which means that if $200,000 worth of Shogun is up for auction, roughly $200,000 will enter the auction. Otherwise, if it's only $100,000, somebody can enter and basically get a free 2x in like 5 minutes if they enter at the end of the auction. So it closes out at market price, which means that there's not this discrepancy between what people get the tokens for and the market price, which then creates a dip. So at auctions, you allow for fair distribution without having a fair distribution chart at the start. So I wanted to have a nice chart on Shogun, or at least give it the opportunity to. Not financial advice.
Yeah. I mean, for like the OG Hexagon folk, it reminds me a bit. I mean, definitely not the same, but the adoption amplifier. So you had the established price of Hex, and then by the end of the day, the amount of coins, that were distributed or whatever matched with, the price there. So, somebody, I guess, posted on X a reply, and it was just like, oh man, well, what are the strategies? And it's just like, well, it's an auction. It's like day by day. It's, maybe if you're uneasy about it, don't go in like day one. And see how it plays out, so you feel more comfortable. I know you don't like to give, there is no financial advice, only opinion, but any other just general thinking ways to approach an auction like that for regular users who might not feel totally comfortable with the process. You're waiting a few days, I think, is just a basic piece of advice I could or opinion I could offer. But
but with auctions, because it's a fair distribution phase, so 2.8 billion supply gets created through the auctions, and that's it. It's hyperdeflationary at that point. It could even be hyperdeflationary during the auctions, which is crazy to think about. But assume hyperdeflationary at the end of day 28. That's when all the supply comes out. So at auctions, there's no real rush. You can do whatever you want to go in, divide it by 28, and just go in every day and just DCA during the distribution period.
Yep.
Like there's no rush. And if you see a great deal, like let's say the auction ends in 10 minutes for that day, and you see a great deal, well then just go in. It's a great deal. But just allocate a larger percentage that day instead of over the 28 days. So you're going to have to watch the auctions. They usually tend to close out at market price. Like there's been auctions throughout the ecosystem. They always close out at market price because it's too good of a deal to pass up, so people are paying attention. Like I can get a fee 2x here for like 2 minutes of work. People love that. They're like, yeah, the auction tends to close at market price or like 5% ROI on the auction. But the goal of the auction is not to make your ROI there. The goal with the auction is just to get your supply. And then the game essentially starts after day 28. Yeah.
Question from Permanent 360. Will they move to X28 and Shogun limit the upside potential of TitanX?
But X28 is TitanX. And when people go into X28, it burns half of the TitanX. So it makes the ecosystem stronger. Because essentially the way TitanX operates is as people use TitanX to participate in the ecosystem, a percentage of all that TitanX gets burned. And that's accounting for roughly $200,000 a day burned. So the more participation, the better. And people have done very well on build on TitanX protocols, like because it's by design leverage on TitanX because of how everything's structured in the ecosystem with details. It's like on Ethereum. You get something on Ethereum in an attempt to outperform Ethereum because you're going down the risk curve. You could just hold a safe asset, but then you're essentially betting on low gains compared to all the other stuff. So you go down the risk curve, so you get an altcoin on Ethereum, like TitanX, for example. And then you hope that the altcoin outperforms the L1, which is Ethereum. That's the exact same system in TitanX, except TitanX is the L1 coin built within the L1. So TitanX is the L1 coin that is hyperdeflationary. And then you go into a protocol built on top of TitanX in an attempt to outperform TitanX, which shouldn't be that hard because it's paired with TitanX. So whatever TitanX does when it comes to price movement is priced in TitanX, so it follows it naturally. So if you have a hyperdeflationary thing paired against TitanX, that's how you get essentially leverage on TitanX. So it's the same game like L1 and the altcoin on the L1, but then TitanX and the project built on top of TitanX.
Yeah, and just echoing your sentiments earlier, Johnny Papa Vegas, no rule saying you have to ape in. One day you can always just chunk in. Same thing with Alpha Knight of TitanX, my auction strategy, DCA over the 28 days, which was also mentioned earlier. Question just came up here. This is interesting. Mike asks, if you have 20 stakes, can you use all 20 in one, or you have to do them all separate?
You
So I'm
can
guessing-
batch.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can batch. You can do all. I'm not sure if you can do 20 at once, but you can definitely do 10 at once.
So if you have 10 billion stakes, you could just make it 100 billion, and then you would, of course, need 100 billion TitanX liquid corresponding.
Yep. Yeah, and that's only going to be available for 28 days. So after the distribution period of 28 days, it's only going to be liquid X28 for the perpetual auctions after. Yeah, and this protocol sounds complex, but the user experience is so damn simple. It's you go to the page, it's one button. On the right side, you have all the information about the auction, and there's one blue button, enter auction, and that's it. If you can click a button, you can understand Shogun. The same thing with TitanX. Like TitanX looks very like, what is complex as hell in the white paper, and then you go to the UI and it's like, oh, just click this button, it's done. The machine handles everything in the background.
Relax Vibes asks, do I need to hold X28? All my TitanX is taken by the ecosystem, Hydra, Hyper, DragonX, Viper. Not sure if I need to swap or stay.
That's a good question. Yeah, you'll need X28 to enter Shogun if you don't have it, because not that many people hold stakes anymore. So I think 80% plus of the participation is going to be X28, liquid X28. Yeah, I mean that's up to you to decide at the end of the day.
Yep.
Yeah, because there's also
Always,
like this
yeah.
contrarian play. There's also this contrarian play. Like when people are focused one way, maybe it's good to go the other way. So there's a lot of that going on, and that usually works very well. No, Shogun is going to have a lot of attention on those first 28 days. So yeah, that's personal strategy.
Yeah. Getting a good amount of questions on staking here. So going back to Mike's question earlier, Johnny asks, so if I batch mint, does that mean you have to enter it all in one day?
Batch mint?
So if you batch mint, or maybe batch end your stakes, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you have 20 stakes and you want to do it over 20 days, you would just do one stake a day. If you batch, it all goes into the same auction.
King Shackles, what happens to the ETH rewards on TitanX stakes if stakes are used for auction on Shogun?
Well, the stakes get burned, so all the shares also get burned. So then the people that do stay in stakes get a bigger percentage.
They get their percentage goes up. Yeah.
Yeah, including DragonX.
Yeah.
And Helios. And now Phoenix is also coming. They're going to also do a staking pool thing. Yeah, in a perfect world, the entire staking pool is owned by protocols. And we're almost there. Like it's almost like 55-60% protocol owned.
Here's one from Blue Bum. It's not really a question, but it's more of a statement. And I've seen this before. And it's, I understand the point that he raises. And let's just, get to it really quick. The complexity of all these tokens and tokenomics is why meme coins are so popular. And yeah, I can get that thinking. Because for a normal user coming into the ecosystem, it's like, oh man, I hear about TitanX, this is, really excited. So many people about it, community's blowing up, but I get lost in like all these protocols, like trying to burn it. What should I do? Should I hold this? Do I have to worry about, flipping out of one versus the other? And it's just like, OMG. And to that, I've heard your response, and my response is like, if you just want to keep it simple, in the end, hold TitanX. But what would you say, to someone who raises this point and be like, oh my gosh, it's so complicated. I want to be involved, but how can I be involved without like wrecking myself or overcomplicating it for myself?
Yeah, I mean that's the same idea that exists on any L1 chain. So with Ethereum, you can either just hold Ethereum and benefit from all the protocols that are built on top of Ethereum. No, Ethereum doesn't really move that much. Like it's a $350 billion asset. Like it takes a lot of money to move that thing. So yeah, you can just hold the hyperdeflationary core asset in the ecosystem, which is TitanX, because everything benefits TitanX. So by proxy, you benefit. It's like a similar setup to PulseX. Like with PulseX, when people trade tokens on Pulse Chain, you don't need to go chase it because you just buy some birds a token and you get the percentage of all the volume happening across the chain. So with TitanX, It's the same. You can just buy and hold TitanX. Like, you don't need to understand everything on Ethereum to buy Ethereum. Most people don't even know what the hell's going on Ethereum. They just buy it.
Right.
TitanX is the same. They're like, oh, TitanX is interesting. A bunch of people are building on it. A bunch is getting burned. It's hyper-deflationary. Oh, let me buy some. So it's the same. It's the same thing with Ethereum. Like, you don't need to participate on everything built on top of Ethereum. You can just buy and hold Ethereum. Just replace Ethereum with TitanX in this example.
I know you answered this in the chat, but just figured I'd put this up quickly for everybody because a lot of more people might have this question. But are there any penalties for, I guess, claiming? Maybe there's a lot of different terminology. I'm guessing like ending a stake. Is that what you would gather?
No, so you claim. So
okay.
the way it works
Okay,
is
sorry. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. Yep.
You enter the auction, then when the day takes over and starts the next auction, you have your supply up to claim. So you don't have to claim it every day. You can just leave it there and just claim it all at once. There's no penalties. You can even wait 100 days before claiming it. Because if you enter the auction on one day, your supply that you got from the auction will just go into the claimable amount. If you enter the second auction, you still haven't claimed, it will just add to that amount. So it will just add. You can claim whenever you want. So you can do the 28 day auctions like once every 28 days. One a day every over 28 days. And then just claim it all after the auctions are done. Like there's no penalties. It all adds up. So there's nothing to worry about there.
Some more general question wrap up. I'll try to simplify this one. So Bro asks about TitanX mining restarting, and it's a dilemma to use stakes for Shogun. Do you have, obviously opinions only because nobody knows the future, but your thoughts on TitanX mining potentially restarting? I know Cryptographics, he was in chat or still might be, but he's done a lot of chart work as to how that could work out over time with mining picking back up. But could you foresee a time where mining could pick up? I guess that would have to deal with price, which obviously we can't call or know anything about. But what are your thoughts on mining perhaps one day picking back up?
I'm personally using my stake to enter auction on Shogun. Yeah, because even if a miner wave kicks off again and a massive amount of Ethereum comes in, it will maybe only create 2% extra supply, or at worst 5-7%. That's nothing. Like Solana inflates at almost 30% plus a year, and it's doing just fine. So it will be way, way, way lower than anything else still. But there's also something nice, because I think the thing that you're going to see happen is even if mining is profitable again, you'll just see people use other protocols like Hyper or Helios or whatever to do their mining, or Hydra, instead of mining TitanX, because it's going to have higher ROIs because it's all priced in TitanX. It's going to be more fast-paced. So I don't really see another miner frenzy picking up. Even if it's profitable, people will probably just mine ecosystem tokens to get that same mining kind of frenzy going, because it's going to have better deals than TitanX itself. Because TitanX gets expensive. Like it gets 55,000x more expensive to create. We're already like almost 15-20x more expensive than at the start.
Yeah, man. I guess through most of the questions, we've covered everything, like the entire launch of TitanX, projects launched on it, X28, Shogun, Titan Farms. I guess turn towards the future a little bit as we kind of start to land the plane here. Is there like a future project or projects on TitanX that you're really like most looking forward to? You love all your kids, or love all the family, I should say, because they're not your kids necessarily, but is there something out there to be like, man, I can't wait to see how this goes after launch? I'm really excited for this one and this one. Something that's really caught your eye.
It's a general topic, building on X28, because that's the big lever pull in the ecosystem. So Shogun is going to set the example on how to build on X28. But people, man, like, I don't think people understand what's going to happen. I think you kind of understand because you've been around similar systems. But supply burn is going to get insane if people build on X28. Just bonkers insane. Because even now, like X28 has already burned close to $1 trillion TitanX, which is close to $1 million, and under 13 days, and nothing is built on it. Yeah. So at Shogun, people are going to need X28, and I know of 3 protocols building on top of X28 already. That team, because if we get that team working as a community, it's just game over. Like, just game over.
And you mentioned building on X28, so there's like a little shift, at least I would call it, in quote shift, but it's been all about build on TitanX, build on TitanX, and I recently saw you say okay, let's perhaps change that scope to build on X28. Is that kind of, I don't want to call it priority, but there is that the focus that future builders should focus on now?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, building on X28 is the best, because then if you just build on X28, because one of the hard things to get adoption within the ecosystem was, so I burn 20% of everything that enters the protocol. Like even on a Shogun, 20% of the TitanX that comes in gets burned, 20% of the X28 that comes in gets burned. I like that a lot because it makes the foundation stronger, which helps the protocol that is building on top of it. It creates this massively positive flywheel where every spin just makes the thing stronger instead of weaker. Yeah, we like the word flywheel a lot. That's pretty cool. But when you build on X28, you don't necessarily need to burn tokens, because I've seen this trend of like, okay, we're burning 20%, and then builders come in and they're only burning 10% of TitanX coming in, and then only 5% and 4% and 3%. And I'm like, I see this trend towards zero, just zero burning. So I'm like, I'll solve that. Build on X28. You'll burn by proxy by pushing X28 above 1 TitanX, which will force people to create X28, set it back down to 1-to-1. Essentially, the arbitrage between the 1-to-1 X28 and TitanX. So as they build utility for X28, that will break the arbitrage constantly just by people wanting it and needing to use it for the ecosystem. So they don't even need to burn X28 if they want to. If they don't want to, they can burn 0, and it's still going to burn the core, which is TitanX, which makes the whole ecosystem stronger with every flywheel turn. Yeah, that's another reason why X28 was built. So people don't even have to have a burn percentage, because X28 will just take care of it by proxy.
Nice. It takes care of that one. I'm just going through any more while I go through this. Do you know of anything building outside of Ethereum using X28? I mean, I guess
not yet, no, because
early.
X28 hasn't. Yeah, X28 has not linked to other chains yet, because the goal is to get a huge user base on Ethereum and then bridge out. First, we want to focus our efforts, and then we'll engage the bridges across other chains. And there's probably a user number like 30,000, 50,000 users-ish, which is not that far away.
As we continue to land the plane here, so we've covered pretty much anything and everything regarding the ecosystem, projects, like brought us up to date, looking into the future. TitanX ultimate goals, say 5 years out, building on all chains, like where do you perhaps see it 5 to 10 years out? Because obviously you mentioned earlier, it's like, you're a long-term guy, you wouldn't really put that much effort into something if you couldn't be around or see yourself around in like 10, 15, 20 years. So obviously you're playing the long game, and that's why personally I love this, because I play the long game. Where do you see it in 5 years? Because I see some people are like, oh my gosh, it's if everything's burnt, then what's the use of it? Because I'm holding something that the main pitch is my supply is getting burned. So does that mean I'm just holding and hoping for a store of value? Or, is it like an entire ecosystem to where you're going to, need only Titan? You can only participate in it if TitanX is the coin. With so many builders, I can kind of see it, that way. Just the building community is like no other out there, and that's what's most exciting to me. And as long as that does not go away, TitanX is going to be around for a long time.
Yeah, so if people are long-term minded people, there's probably nothing better than having a hyperdeflationary asset. It's like if you're a car collector and you buy a car that there's only 100 of in the world, and 5 years from now there's only going to be 3, you're going to be like, this car is staying nicely in my garage because I know there's only going to be 3 in the future. So for long-term investors, they love hyperdeflation stuff. Yeah. Now, hyperdeflation doesn't mean supply goes to zero. It just means, I can't say it. What happens to something that supply goes down and demand stays steady and goes up? I can't talk too much.
Yeah, no, I get it. Like your thing becomes worth more. So yeah, and as long as you continue to extend user base and dev base, like if things are constantly being built on it and you have more users wanting to participate in it, I think that would bode good things for the ultimate thing that you need to use to be in that ecosystem.
Another thing I might see, I'm thinking about this. So TitanX exists on Ethereum. X28 is TitanX. X28 will exist on all chains. There is a path to having our own L2, but I would want everything to be interoperable, where people don't need to switch chains to go to my chain, where it just happens in the background. And then X28 would be the gas token of that chain, and every transaction would burn X28, and then we could have a fair launch, high performance L1. Because like the DNA and ethos that an L1 starts with stays in the L1. So if we start it fair and pure, Jack Levin had the same idea with X1. It's a good thing. TitanX is just doing it in a more store of value sort of way, instead of just fast action like Silicon Valley. Like we're adhering to crypto principles of store of value. Yeah, so the thing he said, TitanX is designed to become the store of value within the ecosystem. Because if everything is paired with it, you want the thing that is paired with it to hold value, because you're essentially basing your future of your thing on that thing. So as TitanX becomes hyperdeflationary, it's kind of like a golden ticket for your project to stay around, because the thing you built on is going to stay around and be pretty good if it's hyperdeflationary. Because like Ethereum is not doing a 10x. It's not going to go from 350 billion to $3.5 trillion market cap in like a couple months. It just doesn't happen. But with low stuff, you never happen. You never know. Things can move very, very fast. And then you get that for free.
Yeah, got a couple more coming in here. You got a few more minutes because we have some more questions coming in.
Wait, is that a question on the screen?
Oh yeah. You got some extra time because I'm just.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah. All right, I'm just trying to get through some last user questions. Alpha asks, is there anything being designed to sustain the ecosystem through a bear market? I mean, I would think there's ETH and buy and burns and things like that, so that looks nice, off to the side just as a casual observer. I don't think you can comment on the future, but I mean there are certain, we've been saying earlier, the builder community is just insane, so it wouldn't surprise me that something would be continued to be built, multiple protocols over time. So bear markets are going to happen. I don't care what asset you're in. People like to think that their token won't go down in a bear market because their token is superior. I don't care what you own. Personal opinion. Hex, Bitcoin, whatever narrative you want to put out there. I would TitanX, I would love to see them all hold or go up in a bear market, but fact is people need funds. Depending upon how bad a bear market is, you're going to sell something, and even if it's something that's awesome and that you love it and it's a great product, sometimes people just need to sell. But I think that was just like a general answer. Did you add anything to that?
Yeah, bear markets are for building. Like TitanX was built in the bear market as well. So like if we have a big builder ecosystem, yeah, you probably just see a lot of building in the bear market. Like for example, Binance Smart Chain did very well in the bear market. It only went down 60%. which is less than Bitcoin. Like, the difference between 60% and 90% is a lot. I think Bitcoin went down 80%, BNB went down 60%. And that's because BNB has like this infinite bid from Binance, the unspoken bid of Binance just buying it up and burning the supply. So BNB is kind of like deflationary. It's a heavy asset, so it moves slow, but it's deflationary, which is why it holds its value better in a bear market. So in a bear market, if you want to stay in crypto, hyperinflation is probably the place to be. Yeah, you definitely do not want to be in inflationary assets in a bear market. That's a painful ass combination.
Yeah. Back to Shogun. Is there a tax on buying or selling Shogun off market during auction or post auction?
Yes. Yeah. So the 8% applies to buy, sell, and transfer at any time. That will exist forever. And that's primarily for price fixer bot. But that's where probably most of the volume will come from. But it applies to users as well. Yeah, because you can't just apply it to bot.
One of my favorite where does the ETH go questions. LOL, I'm just like tongue in cheek. But if all ETH stakers throw their stakes in for Shogun, will the day 888 ETH rewards, where does the ETH go? Well, Dragon X just becomes more powerful.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Because the Genesis wallet does not stake. Dragon X has a big stake. Helios has a big stake. Phoenix is going to have a big stake. So I would assume the AAA payout is just fully protocol owned. And the protocols will get it because they own the lion's share of the TitanX staking position. And it's only going to get bigger leading up to that. So you might just see 90% of Ethereum just going directly to TitanX protocols.
And Johnny says, yeah, the buy and burns do not care what part of the market cycle we are in. Yeah, it just depends upon, if they're activated or, that who knows what happens, but it's a nice little safety net to have in a bear. So, I see a lot of people out there, oh, there's a dip, the buy and burn should be, just turned way up right now. I was like, you haven't seen dips yet, like a bear dip. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been around, like, oh man. I think we're both veterans enough where we don't even feel anything anymore. Just see dip and you're like,
yeah.
I'm so used to it, like zero. The only thing I look at is just the fundamentals, the metrics, user adoption, percentage of growth in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, over a year, the supply, the deflation of the supply. Those are leading indicators. Price is emotional, but it eventually tracks the fundamentals. So if you track the fundamentals, you can map out the future as long as they hold.
Yeah, Brandon Rags to Riches was on last night, and I gave him a little bit of a rib because he was like, I'm already looking forward to the next bear market to take advantage and build that. I'm like, bro, let's enjoy what we have right now. I get what you're saying, but yeah, let's enjoy it. We've waited so long, years. It's not long in crypto, but if you endure a bear market, you deserve to enjoy the good feels of it. So
yeah, no bear market talk.
Like, yeah,
we've been through too many years of bear market. Just enjoy the bull.
Enjoy the bull. Don't worry. I'm sure we will get a bear. I think this is the last one I got. Can you ever see TitanX being listed on a centralized exchange?
Yes, as long as they get their own supply off market, because that's a tricky game. Because if you give supply to a centralized exchange, TitanX is fair launched, so it's not like 95% of the supply is in some kind of wallet sitting somewhere, or 50% of the supply. Like, it's fair launched. So they'll probably have to get their supply off of market to then list it on the exchange. But there's nothing holding it back. There's nothing sketchy. It's fair launched. It's immutable. It's 4 times audited. It's been tested. It's 1% of all volume on Ethereum. Bunch of builders on it. It will exist on all the L1s. So I definitely can see TitanX and X28 being listed on exchanges. Maybe not the big ones like Coinbase. That might be like years down the road, but why not? There's nothing holding it back from getting listed on a SEX.
Yep. And with that, I think we've reached the end of the questions and pretty much everything on my list to talk to you about. And I had one last question, but Crypto Rection, LOL, asked it for me in the chat, or a version of what I was going to ask, and I don't expect an answer, but when launch, when Shogun, like this is like the hype cycle that everybody's like, everybody's like all over social media, all over the comments, and pretty much every TitanX stream. I know, there's probably no exact date, but I mean, if you put numbers
there is
together. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, we're aiming for 28th of November. So
that was my guess.
5 days. Yeah. So audit 1, we did audit 1, came back clean, 0 issues in the code, which is great. This is Buy and Burn and Shogun Core. So 0 issues. We did a second audit. These audits aren't cheap. Like, because it's coming out of pocket, we didn't raise any money. So yeah. But the thing is, like, paying for audits is way less painful than seeing your shit get rugged and just imagining all the pain and horror and your reputation being ruined. So I'm like, I'll pay for the audit. So Shogun has 2 audits because we're using a lot of battle tested code from TitanX, etc., which was already triple audited. So the first audit came back clean, 0 issues. The second audit is being done by 3 individual auditors working together as a team. So you can kind of look at it as 4 audits. So we're waiting to get the final review on that. It's probably take 2-3 days-ish. And then once we have the final sign-off on the second audit with 0 issues, then 28 could be the date. And if it's not 28, then probably 8th of December, because I like my 8 numbers. But right now it's looking 28. They're saying they can get the audit done before the 28. So we can just launch 28. Because the UI is ready. It's already tested. Everything is good. Just some settings. Yeah, the main thing is the audit. If the audit is good, 28th of November.
There you go. Bronco, thanks for elaborating on the auction process. I understand. Johnny Vegas, what a great stream. Thanks for helping bridge the communities. I mean, I'm happy to host it on my channel. I know Jake's got it all over his socials. We got like 1,400 live viewers right now across all platforms. I don't know how much bridging I'll do. I do have to say I'm very happy that I thought I'd get more hate for for this, but it's good. I think it's a sign of health. You get the random X post, on Twitter/X, and it's like, people are gonna do that, but it's like it's good. I think one of the best comments I actually got on stream wasn't even this one. It was one with Steph. And it was literally nothing. Like somebody would just scroll past it, but somebody came in and just be like, hey, I'm listening to this. I don't understand it. I'll be back for your next stream. And it wasn't, hate or name calling or anything like that. It was just like, hey, it's not my thing. And, I'll come back when something I like. There's something for everybody. And I think that was like a very thoughtful, overlooked type of way of looking at things, and I wish more people would do that. So
thanks. I mean,
the
thing with communities as well is it's not us versus us, unless people are doing personal attacks, which I try to refrain from heavy. I just like pushing back with data instead of name calling. But as long as things are fair, it's through DeFi, it's as immutable as it can be, and we're fighting for personal freedom and no censorship, then we're on the same team. We should essentially be fighting the VCs and TradFi and the corruption in crypto and the fucking meme coin drugs. There's millions of dollars being stolen every day by people chasing meme coins. Like 1 in 100,000 meme coins makes people a little bit of money, and then it gets dumped to shit. And then 2 days later, there's another meme coin. That's the shit we should be attacking, because like through DeFi has money flows together. So we all live and die together. So instead of fighting each other, we should fight the thing that actually need fighting. Because I think the communities have a lot of overlap when it comes to like belief system. I mean, we're all here for DeFi at the end of the day. Just personal control over our money to make our own decisions without being censored or controlled or frozen. Yeah.
And I would argue that, here in the States, like the most recent election, like you could have not have gotten a better outcome for DeFi. Like it just...
Gensler is out.
Yeah. It just... Bye-bye. Turbocharged everything. Like Bitcoin was doing well anyway. Granted, I think we would have gone down, 10% or something like that. But the long-term chart, like, I think you mentioned earlier, like the cycles, like it works until it doesn't. and there are too many factors, going for crypto than against it. And the election here, certainly supercharged that. So yeah, man. Yeah, I guess go ahead.
I don't even live in the US, and I was hyped as fuck.
I could tell by like your tweets, man.
Yep.
That was awesome. You and Eric both, and yeah, of course, a bunch of other people I follow or have in lists or whatever. Lists are my thing. So people are like, "Why don't you follow so and so? Why don't you follow me?" It's like, well, there's two things. I was like, you can use lists, and this is like a quick 30-second social media rant. Use lists. Lists are awesome. Like if you have TweetDeck or whatever, you can just categorize like your data streams and your takes in there, and yeah, just use it. Plus the algorithm will naturally give you what you want. So people are like, well, why am I seeing stuff that from people I hate in my feed or in my For You? It's like, well, it's probably because you're interacting with it. So if you don't want to see it, mute it. And that's my number one social media tip from this stream is just, if you don't see anything, if you don't want to see it anymore, mute it. They're not going to know, but you're not going to give that the engagement for it to continue to show up in your feed. So anyway, social media tips with Cabana.
Yeah, I love Twitter.
Yeah,
I usually just go to the following tab. Like when I want to engage with people, I go to the following tab. That usually gets pretty good.
Yeah, I have a lot of lists, and so I for people I don't follow, I have them in specific lists. I got like a TitanX list. I got a traditional markets list from the guys I really want to follow, and anything else will probably fall in like that For You kind of thing. And then of course I have the regular followers or whatever. But I mean, if you categorize it, it is a truly useful tool. And that anytime anybody asks me about social media, it's like, oh, it's a cesspool. I don't like what I'm seeing. Why am I seeing this stuff when I'm not even following them? Well, again, it's probably because you interacted with them, and the algorithm is like, oh, well, you interacted with this, so you should see more of it. So.
Especially like when you click on a profile, that's a super hated profile. You click on it, and then you click on replies, and you're like, makes sense where you see a lot of this stuff.
Yeah,
just hate reply.
Oh man, we are almost at 2 hours, man. I just want to thank you for coming on and spending as much time. I know you're, huge busy, leading up to this, and there's a lot of things I'm excited to see coming in the pipeline. So we usually wrap up, with the guests, but it's just one today. Shilling themselves, where can we find you? All that stuff, anything that you got going on at, audience, we've covered a lot, but anything else, you want to mention to the audience, feel free, man, and take it away.
The main thing will probably just follow me on Twitter, NK knows. I post a lot about the ecosystem. And then if you want to see some interesting supply stats, go to app.titanx.win/stats. I love that page. Because it even shows like the TitanX and protocols and stuff, like you build on TitanX leaderboard. That will give you a good glimpse in the ecosystem, because you can just click around, see all the dApps that people are building. Like it's high quality stuff. It's not just like random garbage meme coins. Even the meme coins have innovation, which is crazy. Like I think our ecosystem kind of invented MemeFi. It's like the intersection between memes and DeFi, but the meme has something a little bit behind it, but it's still the meme marketing. So we even have that. Yeah, app.titanx.win/stats for the supply stats. And then just Twitter. Because once you have me on Twitter, I'll probably just infect your Twitter feed.
Yeah, see, don't
my tweets.
Yeah, put him in a list. Make him his own category. I think I got you and like Eric in your own column here. So yeah, that's a select little TitanX group. Maybe a couple other hardcore TitanX guys like Marco and whatnot. But yeah, good stuff, man. Thank you, Johnny. Great work. Looking forward to see more educational streams like this. Well, thanks for coming. I mean, this is viewership just keeps on going up across all platforms. You guys rock. This is a great conversation. Like the 2 hours like literally flew by. So wow, yeah. If you like more of these streams, outside of the Pulse Chain ecosystem, let me know right here, Cabana Crypto, on all platforms. Comment in this video, let me know, and we'll do more of them. I don't usually say like and subscribe. I guess I should as the YouTube guy, but come on over to
you
my
should.
I know, but I hate doing it. But it's just like, please, because I don't need it per se. But yeah, to grow the audience and stuff like that, I should say it more, and I recognize that. So yeah, come on over to my channel, like and subscribe if you're viewing from elsewhere, and let me know if you want more of this stuff, and I'll be happy to do it, because this was just like a nonstop 2 hours of conversation that was awesome. And the chat is certainly pleased with it. So good stuff, man. Thank you very much. And let's do it again after more things come to market. And if I don't chat you on the socials, have a great holiday season, and can't wait to see what's coming up, man.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, it's almost Christmas.
Thanksgiving is next week. Like, that's the great
I love
conspiracy.
Christmas.
Thanksgiving. It's a Shogun Thanksgiving. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Right.
Because yesterday I went to the store to buy some coffee cups.
Yeah.
And I walked in the store and I saw like a Christmas tree, and then like the green red decoration. I just felt like home, and then like a little wood smell. I was like, I just want to lay on the couch and sleep here. It just felt like home. I love that Christmas vibe. It's amazing.
I need a TitanX hat so I can flirt with the girls for Thanksgiving. Yeah, good job, Crypto Rex. I need to contact Marco. This is actually a Marco hat, but yeah, I need a few others. I got Hex Pulse Chain gear from him. I think it's craftingwithcrypto.com. He's got so much good stuff over there. He's got TitanX stuff, so good stuff, man. All right, well, that's about it for today. 2 hours. Thanks again, man. I really appreciate it. Jake Sharpe from Build on TitanX, Build on X28, Shogun coming soon. And yeah, man, thanks one more time. Looking forward to doing it again.
Oh, likewise. Hell yeah. Yeah, 2 hours. This felt like 25 minutes. That was
fast. It felt like a half hour. It was just nonstop. Yeah. So good stuff, man. Thanks, everybody. And like I said, please leave feedback, questions, comments, and we will see you next time. Cheers.